Hello and welcome to Analyze Customer Feedback in Minutes, Not Months. My name is Chris Screenak, Partner Solutions Architect and Machine Learning Segment Lead for Amazon Web Services. On today's agenda, we will be looking at an overview of machine learning services, and we'll also be featuring our AWS machine learning partner, Luminoso. We'll take a look at a case study from LQA Limited and have a Q&A session. In addition to learning about AWS, we'll hear from Catherine Havasi, founder and chief strategy officer of Luminoso Technologies, and Heath Daughtry, managing director of product development at LQA. And there we go. So what we're going to learn today, we're going to learn about the machine learning tools on AWS and the machine learning stack. You're going to learn how to use machine learning to analyze your customer feedback within minutes, how to overcome analysis obstacles such as domain-specific jargon or misspellings, and how to extend analysis across languages and locales. And remember, please post your questions in the chat box throughout this presentation as we will review questions at the end of today's event. So first up, AWS machine learning. At Amazon, we've been doing machine learning for more than 20 years. You may be familiar with our fulfillment and logistics and our speedy delivery of products when you order them. You may not know that we've automated that process with these little machines called Kivas. Many are also familiar, of course, with our search and discovery tools, including the famous recommendations that are at the bottom of our selections of all of our products, including books. And our machine learning investments have paid off in many of our existing products, including Kindle. When you search on any page in a Kindle app, you can get rich details on not only the topics you drilled down on, but on relevant topics. When you're using Amazon Prime and you freeze a frame, you will see all of the actors in that frame. Now that data, those actors are not being put up by metadata that was pre-programmed. We're actually using computer vision to determine who's on the screen and searching the IMDb for more information on the actors that are on that screen. It's also led to a family of new products, including, of course, the Amazon Echo with Alexa and the Amazon Show and other variants of the Amazon and Alexa product. If you get the chance to visit one of the new Go stores, these are stores where we're determining what products you're choosing and choosing to buy and walk out of the store using entirely computer vision. The way that works is you sort of badge in with your phone, choose the product that you like, and you walk out without passing by a cashier. In the beginning, it could feel a little bit like you're shoplifting, but then you soon get a message that says you just purchased a sandwich or a lunch or something like that, whatever you went in there for. So we've implemented machine learning in our AWS stack, not only on our products, but we've exposed the API through managed services to tens of thousands of customers that are running machine learning on AWS today. So I've referred to the stack, and here it is. We organize all of our products in what I like to say is sort of a cake, where the icing on the cake are the application services. Here you can access rich, deep learning products, principally in the language and vision areas, without having any prior experience with machine learning. These are API-driven services, and just like all the services on AWS, they're accessible whenever you need them on demand. The middle layer of our services includes the product SageMaker, which is really an extraordinary end-to-end modeling tool where you can develop your own algorithms or choose from more than a dozen built-in algorithms in SageMaker and automatically deploy your machine learning models at scale. This is all resting on a bedrock of our infrastructure and frameworks, including our powerful P3 instances. And we take a very non-prescriptive approach to how we provide machine learning tools, offering TensorFlow, MXNet, PyTorch, and the other popular machine learning development stacks. Now, I want to take a moment just to dig into SageMaker a little bit because it's an extraordinary fabric, really, of 4 tightly related components. First of all, there's the Jupyter Notebook instances, our built-in algorithms that scale automatically, the training service, which is separate from the notebook instances, saving you money, and the hosting service. So the way this works is you launch a Jupyter Notebook and you begin to build your models or use the models that we provide. Using our separate training service, you can not only do very fast and powerful training, even taking your training models out to clusters of machine, but we also provide automated hyperparameter tuning. Deployment can be as simple as 1 click from a GUI interface or 1 command from a Python script. You can also create many models that are available simply on demand. In other words, without a dedicated endpoint. So some of the companies that are using this technology might be a little surprising. For example, Allied Van Lines is, a very familiar moving service in the United States. And you wouldn't think that they were on the cutting edge of machine learning technology, but when you look at the problem that they have, they are. They're taking a complex logistics problem with operational efficiencies and other challenges and applying algorithms through SageMaker to optimize costs, forecast demand, and ensure that resources are available on demand. In fact, whether you're looking at healthcare, life science, or any other of maybe dozens of different vertical industries, including finance, et cetera, many companies are running on AWS and with enormous success. And the reason why is because we have the broadest and the easiest to use machine learning platform. So that is machine learning on AWS in very broad brush strokes. Now, I'd like to talk about a special program that we have. We have more than 50,000 registered members of the Amazon Partnership Program, but only a very select few, in fact, less than 24, actually achieve what we call the machine learning competency. So what is the competency? The competency is a program where Amazon partners have moved through the tiers from simply registering to advanced tier, and then we'll do deep diligence on these customers to make sure, first of all, that they are applying the 5 pillars of a well-architected design, and that their machine learning tools represent the state of the art. One of those competency partners is with us here today. That is Luminoso. So with that now, I will pass the presentation to Catherine.
Hi, Chris. Thanks so much. I'm Catherine Havasi. I am Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of Luminoso. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do and how it helps with customer service today. Companies have an embarrassment of riches right now when it comes to getting data to make decisions. They're swimming in unstructured data for customer communications and employee surveys. All great but untapped sources of customer feedback and employee feedback. So many teams, contact centers, customer experience, talent management, and product designers could benefit if they could get this information and use it for the voice of the customer or voice of the employee programs. But it takes too long to read all that feedback, so most teams are usually forced to cheat. They skim through data, looking for things that catch their eye, or perhaps sometimes they pull samples, try to collect a couple anecdotes, or use a computer to count words. That's not a principled way to do analysis. This is precisely where Luminoso helps. Simply put, what we do is take all the open-ended, unstructured text feedback you give us. It could be survey verbatims, support tickets, online reviews, chatbot transcripts, all of the human-authored communication that takes too long to read on your own. And what we want to do is pull out top themes and emotions. We help you identify trends, understand what drives your key metrics, and spot emerging issues. And we do all that in less time than it takes me to give this presentation. Now, there's a lot of noise out there about natural language technologies, and some of it may sound similar. So what's the difference? Well, most machine learning approaches take millions or billions of data points, and months of consulting work to clean data and manually handcraft models or vocabularies. And no one really has time for that. And even then, they're only marginally effective without constant tuning and training to keep them up to date. So in addition to the initial cost, there's a maintenance. Alternatively, some use these pre-developed models with generic data or models that are tuned to a specific industry. These models don't know about your company, your products, and your customers, and that makes these models a one-size-fits-none approach. Our quick learn technology has a completely different approach. We use proven machine learning technologies to automate how we learn your industry and your customer's specific vocabulary automatically. This common sense AI approach uses what's known as background knowledge. Ours is called ConceptNet. It contains over 28 million facts about the world, and it applies those facts to learn the specified language of your business. Most importantly, this approach eliminates all hand tuning or massive data that most deep learning technologies require to be successful. Practically speaking, this is common sense AI, and this approach dramatically affects how you can use this unstructured data. You can work with thousands of documents instead of millions. You can look at last week's support tickets. You can look at an annual survey. You can make that annual survey quarterly. You can get answers in minutes, not months, right in the meeting, and in time to do something about the friction points you uncover. Instead of traditional approaches, which manually build natural language models up from scratch, one language at a time, we're ready to automatically learn from your text in any one of 14 languages and apply our built-in knowledge to truly understand the meaning behind the words. In the end, this means your business analysts aren't building and rebuilding analytics spaces just to try to answer some predefined questions. They can explore the data themselves and find unexpected relationships and new insights for your business to use. And this approach makes a big difference. Let me explain what it means for you. So here are some tangible results that our clients have benefited from using Luminoso. They're finishing manual work in minutes that used to take weeks after getting the data. They're more accurately identifying and deflecting incoming support tickets at really quite high volumes. They're more accurately identifying and answering executive questions in an hour instead of a month. They're interpreting the voice of the employee survey for 500,000 customers across the globe. They're spotting software defects from customer complaints in minutes instead of waiting until days later when customers have already churned to find those problems. This is fundamentally changing how teams work with this kind of data. If you can analyze it faster, you can collect more of it, and you can collect it more often. And you can ask open-ended questions instead of reducing everything to numbers and ratings. But if you do have hard numbers like NPS scores, star ratings, CSAT, anything like that, something you get from a survey, you can correlate the unstructured feedback with the structured data to really understand what your customers are saying. On a side note, this is important to you and me as fellow consumers. What use cases like this mean for all of us is that your voice can now be heard and not ignored when you give a company feedback, no matter whether or not it's the feedback they expected. So what I'm going to do now is just spend a few more minutes and show you an example of how one might use the software itself. Then my friend Heath from LQA will talk about how they use the software in the broader context of analyzing feedback about hospitality clients. So here we are within Luminoso's Daylight product. This user interface is suitable for anybody from the advanced data scientist down to the business user who just needs answers. And this is, of course, going to be a really quick demo, but we're going to start out by creating a new project, which is as simple as clicking on the New Project button. End users can import text as simple as a CSV file, or from Excel, or download from their favorite survey tool. Advanced users can feed directly with our REST API. Or our Luminoso professional services team can integrate with nearly any data source you have, things like SAP, Salesforce, Zendesk, and do so within a couple of days of effort, tailoring it to your environment and your workflows. Business users can just click on the Choose a Dataset button, select your file, and then select Open. Confirm the data was the project you intended, and then select Create Project. And it's really that fast. The system loads and reads every verbatim in just moments, building a complete understanding of every concept as it's used by your customers or your employees, and how they're related to each other and other concepts within your structured data. You can click here when it's done. And with this complete understanding of all concepts, the system next decides how to build a 2D representation of the 150-dimensional vector space, highlighting top clusters of documents in different colors. On the left, it pre-populates some saved topics with the top 4 concepts of each major cluster in the conversation. For example, if you click on breakfast, in the center right of the concept cloud, you can see details of that concept. You'll notice that the top related concepts it's giving you are great insights into what people are thinking about your breakfast. In the bottom right, you'll find the verbatims, including features like being able to download detailed analytics or make a new project based on related concepts, so you can really understand that concept. As we mentioned, the default saved topics on the left are based on the top concepts in the cluster. They're there automatically, but you can also make your own. Click Dismiss to get rid of the default topics. Now we have loaded a predefined set of topics, and these happen to be from LQA in the hospitality sector, with some of their key customer service items they would want to look at. But it's just as easy for you to create your own topics as well. Now select the Answers First icon on the left bar labeled New to see some results. From the Answers First pages, you can get the number of different types of matches of each result, such as topic match counts and conceptual topic match counts. You'll notice in the bar chart, the dark blue is the exact matches and the light blue is related concepts. Luminoso's understanding of closely related concepts is a key differentiator. All of these results in light blue would have been missed by other NLP and ML technologies, and that allows Luminoso to give you the real answers. By clicking the Breaking Down the Field drop box, you can slice and dice your data to identify what is unique to different groups, taking advantage of the structured data and metadata you have in your data, your survey, or your tickets. In this example, we have broken down topics by hotel to identify how these important concepts vary across different properties. Here's another view of this data called Score Drivers, which is one of my favorites. Here you'll see how different topics impact the customer satisfaction score and how often each one is seen. For example, arrival with a plus 0.4 impact on a 5-star rating, that's a huge positive driver, although only a couple hundred people are talking about it. For those people, it really matters. People talking about room or the quality of the room is associated with a minus 0.2, and a lot of people mentioning the room and associated concepts, meaning that that's a slight negative driver for quite a bit of people. So that's an example of how Luminoso's technology can quickly analyze unstructured data, in this case online reviews, to pick up top themes and concepts and figure out what's driving these key KPIs. Next, Heath Daughtry will show how LQA takes this capability to the next level with their hotel assessment service.
Great. Thank you very much, Catherine. Again, my name is Heath Daughtry. I'm Managing Director of Product Development at LQA. And I'd like to start off with first a bit about LQA. Oops. Here we go. So LQA, we're a market leader in quality assurance and benchmarking data for the global luxury hospitality industry. We have complete coverage of the world, operating in 131 countries and serving 83 brands. Our clients serve guests everywhere, hence the importance for a multinational partner that could work in multiple languages to extract cultural nuances and sentiment. So it was important for us to find partners that had no borders and could support our needs. Our clients call us because they want to understand how they're performing across their product, across their emotional engagement, as well as their service. They also want to understand where they sit relative to their competition and where should they focus on maximizing improvement. These brands all strive to be the best in a highly competitive space, and so any competitive advantage can be extremely valuable. We focus on solving the problem that matters the most to our clients, and we take a global perspective. This is where the value is. We listen for the real pain points to get to the root cause of what's creating friction and holding them back. And we see this as a continual method and mode of operating. This isn't an event for us. So what have we heard from our clients? And it's very consistent across clients, across geographies. Ultimately, things are getting harder, not easier. And specifically, this relates to three components revolving around data: volume, velocity, and variety. Each one of these are overwhelming in their own right. So the real opportunity and the win for everyone was taking away the complexity and getting clear direction to the people that make the difference, and this being the frontline employee. As we looked at the opportunity and how we were going to improve, it was very important that we focused on three things. One was to establish a common vocabulary, and this leverages LQA's benchmark standards and framework. Next, it was to be as comprehensive as we could be relative to the voice of the guest. So taking in not just surveys via social media, but also guest reviews, and then also the LQA audits, where you could consider LQA as one of the most discernible guests evaluating over 800 standards. And then getting to the prioritization that matters, where we can create clear focus and deliver this via a user-friendly, simple, highly accessible tool. When you consider the actual stakeholders, there's three different stakeholders that we wanted to ensure that we were addressing. The similarity and the commonality is that they all had the same outcome in mind. But it was important that we integrate their perspectives to make sure that we were achieving the results that they wanted. So as you can see on the left, department leads, employees themselves. The focus here is how do you accurately direct scarce resources to the areas that matter the most. As it relates to hotel general managers, they're focused on improving overall guest satisfaction scores. May this be a key performance indicator around Net Promoter Score, or the Global Guest Review Index, or a normalized customer satisfaction. And then last, when you think about brand and corporate leaders, a focus on solving and answering, how do I increase financial performance and profitability? And may that be revenue per occupied room or ADR. The value in all of this, and that tethers each of these stakeholders, is the value of the LQA luxury benchmark standards, because that sets the common language and the framework for us to work from. So how did we engineer it? First, it was paramount that we start off with the most comprehensive voice of the customer to create one version of the truth. This is comprised of LQA audits, as I referred to. It refers to the specific hotel guest surveys. And then lastly, all hotel social media reviews across all of those sites. Taking in this information in terms of thousands upon thousands of verbatims of what guests are saying and how LQA is evaluating these properties is all then ingested into Luminoso and the artificial intelligence. So the critical part, the second critical part of this, is back to the common language that really helped leverage Luminoso AI. It was able to learn what to look for and quantify the areas of importance. And it's important to stress that this is not just evaluating the text, the verbatims, and the comments, but this is also the scores. So this is both quantitative and qualitative. As you filter through this information and get to the heart of what matters the most, and realizing that no human could do this, the last mile and a critical piece of the solution is that we made the output easy to consume by those who face the guest. We found that our guests and our clients don't need another dashboard. They're overwhelmed at times by another Tableau graph. So creating this in an infographic way to get at the heart of how to simply present what matters the most was what we found worked and was the highest value. In addition, this makes this information consumable not only as a management tool, but as a tool to post within our property canteens to motivate staff in areas that they're having great success and should be celebrated, as well as areas that are priority focus that really matter and move the needle. So the results themselves reflect the accuracy of the AI and the simplicity of the message. And so as you see here, we have 2 pilot hotels where we move the needle significantly in 2 primary key performance indicators. One being the Global Review Index, which is an index of all social media reviews. In this case, we were able to lift 2 hotels, respectively, 4% and 7%, which is a very significant move in a month-over-month basis. The good news, we've managed to maintain that consistency. Second is Net Promoter Score, and I believe most of you are all familiar with this. As it relates to the 2 hotels, we were able to move a Net Promoter Score from 19 and 24 points respectively across these 2 properties, moving these to historic highs for a property and putting at top of class relative to what is established as an excellent benchmark in terms of delivering a Net Promoter Score. We've demonstrated that the right insight in the right hands of the right person with the right direction moves the needle. As we look to commercialize this approach, we're ultimately committed to providing a turnkey solution. And our solution is different in many ways. One, it synthesizes all of the voice of customer channels. It's accurate and empirical, and it takes the complexity out of answering what matters the most to our guests and to our clients to improve satisfaction. And so a way to think about this is that the diamonds are now harder to find in the mine. And what we're making easier is to get the most valuable ones to the surface. With that, I'll turn it back over to Chris for Q&A.
Well, thank you so much. That's a great use case. Really, the rubber hits the road there. And thank you, Catherine. Yeah, a few questions have come in here. So I'll start at the top here. Just reading this verbatim. How smart, and smart is in quotes, is this analysis? For example, when analyzing breakfast feedback, need customers actually mention the word breakfast? Or could they mention eggs or buffet or morning meal to associate these concepts to breakfast topics?
So it actually does do that. It is that smart. When you're talking about things like breakfast and knowing that one eats eggs for breakfast or croissants or sausage, that's something that we know coming in. One of the really key differentiators of our stuff is that we use what's called common sense analytics. And that's both a really understandable term, but also a technical term for what happens when you bring world knowledge about how the world works into an AI system. And that's something that's really a big trend right now inside everything from, in the academic sphere as well. And that's something that we do. So we come in with a model that already knows that. And even if you say breakfast and everyone just says sausage, it will be able to make that connection.
Okay, great. Next up, how long does it take for Luminoso to learn a verticals model like the one demonstrated in this hotel model?
Yeah, at some point I'm gonna also let Heath answer this question from his experience. But I think what we want to be able to do is definitely emphasize that we're building a model based on your data, and it takes about the amount of time that you saw when I did it in the demo. So it's actually really quite quick.
Yeah, and to add on to that, this is Heath. So I think the important thing, it certainly wasn't the processing once establishing the taxonomy. I think one of the things that was critical for us is that when you look at reviews, when you look at surveys, and then you look at the LQA audit, while there's many similarities, we attempted to normalize that information to create a consistent view. And then just as Catherine had suggested, the verbatims and everything, the AI analysis and the machine learning was then able to understand the concepts related to that LQA benchmark and allow us to present this information in a way that was actually familiar to our customers. So they understand that language, and so there's not another learning curve in terms of another way of trying to assess or filter what customers are saying that's both positive and negative as a part of the analysis.
And I mean, I think that really emphasizes something that's very interesting about AI in general right now. Freeing us from and freeing people from having to do all of the setup is actually really helpful, because I think in a lot of places it's about humans, and in this kind of analysis, the not real-time analysis, it's about humans and computers working together to make decisions that are smarter than either could do on the side. And I think in some sense it really allowed LQA to say, look, we're going to bring our expertise to the table here, and allow the tool to have the tool be flexible enough that you could really bring the things that you knew and the questions that you had to bear.
All right, fantastic. We got quite a few more questions coming in. These are in the control panel, so if you have a question, please do type it in there. We'll get to it. So the next question is, do you support Chinese as a language? I'd like to expand that a little bit and say, well, first of all, do you support Chinese languages? And what languages are supported?
So yes, we definitely do support Chinese. I don't think LQIA uses Chinese right now, but it's actually our second most popular language. We do Chinese, Japanese, Korean. We're bringing Indonesian into the picture pretty soon. We'll be the only one that does Indonesian out there. We do Arabic, Russian, and most European languages, and Brazilian Portuguese. And we're doing each one of those in the native language. We come out of MIT, where one of the specialties of, honestly, what was my group at MIT was doing multilingual analysis. And so when we did this, we partnered with universities and places across the globe to start building these models. The breakfast is sausage model in all these different places. So we can really bring that to bear.
Fantastic. Next up, for LQA, and in the comment here, I'll read verbatim. Maybe I missed this. How real-time and continuous is this analysis? Is this done continuously every day, or is it more of a batch process where data is analyzed perhaps weekly? If continuous, can you say more about the architectures under the hood connecting LQA, Luminoso, and AWS?
Okay, great. Good question. So let me start by saying one of the things that was important in the early testing that we were doing with our clients and the processing, the frequency of the data, was to really just sort of understand, one, what did that frequency need to look like in terms of the period for analysis, but then what was the right cadence to put this in front of our clients? And as you can expect, we live in a world of real time, and I think everyone thinks that we can process it in that way. We found that while we can process the information in real time, and there's no technical obstacle to do that, that really the right frequency and where we've started is to deliver this information on a monthly basis. And the reason for that is because while we're providing the signal, the insight, and the focus, it ultimately does require activation and execution on the behalf of our clients, the operators and the frontline staff. And so their ability to then create an action plan and implement that plan, we really tried to create a balance of not necessarily moving the parameters. And so we felt like a monthly cadence of delivering this as an end user set of actionable insights was the right cadence. Now, backing that up in terms of the question of technology and how does this work from an architecture, we have the ability, like I said, to run this daily. There's no obstacle at that point. And as we're thinking about evolving and learning with our clients, having the ability to access that information vis-a-vis desktop and pull that information on a cadence that they want to is certainly something that we're evaluating. But I'll defer to Luminoso to speak more to the technology architecture.
Sure. So I think keeping this at a high level, and we're happy to talk with people who want to deep dive later, really we're able to do both batch and real-time analysis. Sometimes when we're doing things that are a little bit different of a use case that involve, tickets coming in and either getting deferred to self-help or getting routed to the right place or tagged in the right way, that's something that's happening continuously at scale. And I think a lot of it has to do with what fits the user's perspective, right? You can do that, or you can do what LQA does is monthly. We have people who do daily. We have people who do twice a day during releases. We have people who do quarterly. It really does depend on what the business flow is. And I think it's really important when you're setting something like this up to think, well, how are my users consuming my insights, right? And how often does that matter? Is that in a real-time dashboard of some kind? Is that something that's automatically being done? Is that something where if we're able to turn something around very quickly, we can keep employees from churning and really just match the frequency of analysis with the way the business works? And it's okay to ramp that up over time. If you're not ready, if you do something yearly and you're like, oh, I'm doing a yearly employee survey and I want to move to Pulse every day, and that's something where you could ramp that up.
All right, thank you. Next up, data prep. The question is on data preparation. What I hear is that maybe the most time expending is the word used, is data preparation. Is that the case?
I'll take this from just so as we work with our clients, the data preparation. So first, if I kind of walk through each of the data sources, the LQA audit itself, there's no preparation other than this is a straight line ingestion into the Luminoso AI engine. What we have done is we've standardized the information that we have coming across reviews. So that's really sort of a standardization in how we normalize, but there's not much effort to do that. And then lastly, guest satisfaction surveys. This is one where each of our clients do have necessarily a different guest survey, and so what we've done is we've normalized those things in, which has really been more of a technology exercise, but very straightforward. So our ability to spin up a new client with this capability is very turnkey and straightforward, and a lot of that has to do with the flexibility of the Luminoso platform.
Okay, well, the next question I think is you kind of briefly touched on, but it is the data static or streaming?
So let me refer. So we're ingesting social media reviews every day. LQA audits, those happen on a frequency. So when we have new audits related to that particular hotel in question, that we're providing the insights, then we'll take that on that frequency. In terms of guest surveys, we can take that information in real time. At this point, we've actually chosen to take it in batch in advance of their monthly analysis generation.
We actually have two products. One is for static and one is for streaming. The streaming product is called Compass. It's used a little bit more inside an automated decision workflow in something like a customer contact center. And that's also AWS. And so that runs within both cloud based on AWS, and we also do quite a number of private cloud type installs with that on the AWS ecosystem.
Next up, do you analyze, let me rephrase this a little bit. Do you discriminate between expert data and social media data?
I'm not sure what expert data would be considered, so may need a little help from Catherine on this.
So I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit, because I think what the question is do you need to do something different for expert data versus social media data? From a technical end, no. The question is whether or not you as a customer, you don't need to do anything from a technical end. I think there's an interesting question about whether you as a customer want to process those data streams differently or put them in the same sort of bucket, right? And I think that when you're looking at sort of, I guess, expert hotel reviews, or, you know, we see this sort of expert versus social a lot when we're in CPG or retail, where you're looking at people on the street analysis versus, you know, sometimes professional tasters or other folks, where they definitely have different words that they use, and we can solidify that, and we can sort of definitely align those two vocabularies. But I think there's always a process question from your point of view of what is your goal, right? Do you want to be looking at these things differently? Or do you want to just get everyone who's ever tasted the product in the same place and see what they're saying? And it can be also fun to sort of compare those things and say, hey, you know, there's this particular technical taste that the professional tasters are pulling up. You know, how do people on the street talk about that? And can we align how big of a deal it is for the professional tasters versus for the folks on the street?
Great. So this next question is, on average, how long does it take to bring a new language onto your platform?
That honestly depends on what language it is. So we're based on, one of the two things we're based on is, from a technical perspective, we're based on a type of technology that the data science folks will have heard about called transfer learning. For those who are less data science, if you have a little app on your phone that makes it look like your dog was painted by Picasso, that's transfer learning. It basically allows you to look like you built a very specialized model with a lot of data using much, much less data. And one of the reasons we can do that is this common sense knowledge base. The common sense knowledge base was built over, at this point, almost 20 years at MIT, and we have it in 73 languages. So for those 73 languages, it's much faster than for something that wasn't on that list. And that after that, it basically depends on linguistic complexity. When we brought up to speed some smaller languages, like maybe Dutch, it only took us a couple of weeks. Building out something like Indonesian is a bigger endeavor, something that looks more like a couple quarters.
Catherine, are you using SageMaker? And if so, how are you using SageMaker at Luminoso?
So we definitely use a lot of things within the Amazon ecosystem. And here's where I get to be personally honest, that I am a computational linguist and a technology strategist. So I am really the wrong person to be answering this question. I know we do make use of Lambda quite a bit, which is, I think, in SageMaker. So within the ecosystem, we do that.
No worries. Security. So the question here is, what are the security aspects that you've had to cover? And if I'll add to this question, privacy as well.
That's a really big concern, obviously, for customers, and it's something that we've put a lot of time into. One of the interesting things about this company is one of the my co-founders in this company was from security and cloud architecture, and not from AI. So this has really been something that we've always thought about from the beginning. You know, we've always been a cloud-first company, and obviously we are extremely thrilled with the security support from AWS and from the AWS team. For people who need more security, we do AWS private clouds as well, which is really, really helpful to a lot of our more security conscious folks. And we also, as a company, do go on premise if we need, but we find more and more people are very happy with the private cloud solution.
Got it. How do you mitigate negative customer reviews?
I'll take a shot at this, and so I'm not exactly sure about the mitigation. The fact of the matter is that all reviews are important to us, and whether that is positive or negative or wherever on that spectrum is critical to understanding and having a comprehensive data set, and then getting to the truth of what matters the most about that. So there's no filtering relative to what it is. It's what's the guests say is what we see, and it's what we analyze, and ultimately the insights that we provide as the last mile of that. So I don't know if there's another perspective, Catherine, you might offer.
I think that with mitigating of individual reviews, I'm guessing that various LQA customers actually have different ways that they deal with that kind of feedback, and that they get, and that they provide action on some of that. When we're working with folks that are end users themselves, they often have different processes for what to do about particular negative reviews. If it's a one-off negative review versus it's a systematic issue, there's a lot of different ways. But an important thing is, and something that makes actionable insights really valuable, is having the framework within your organization to elevate issues that you uncover.
Okay. The penultimate question here. How do you match, identify, stitch customers across multiple devices or touch points?
Catherine, you want to take that, and then I'll give a business lens to it.
In some sense, I really definitely think that there's a huge business side to this. From an analytics standpoint, it's really important to, I feel like, align what's being said across omnichannel analytics. And the word omnichannel is really getting bandied around right now, and I think that there are a lot of questions about how to put that into practice. And I'm personally very passionate about omnichannel. I think it's super important. I think being able to take feedback that comes in through chats, through mobile tickets, et cetera, and really both align the customer identity across those, but also align the way workflows work and see what the differences in feedback you get from those becomes extremely important from a business case. I think we're hopefully heading to the point where, surveys get analyzed by one department and the mobile team over there in a whole different silo is analyzing their own feedback, and never the two shall meet. I think that folks who are successful with analytics are maybe not able right now to break down those barriers, but are finding paths within their organization to do so.
All right. So go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to move to the next question, so please address the previous one.
Yeah, what I was going to, from an LQA standpoint, you just to be clear, and it also touches sort of on the security. It's of paramount importance to us that we're not consuming, customer personal identifiable information. It's critical to the relationship that we have with our clients, and certainly to the security practices. So all of that information, whether that's actually a part of a review or a survey, is filtered, and I think it's important to communicate that. The second piece to this is that if I understand the question, it's around how are we taking all of this information and tethering it to an individual to serve a specific individual or take an intervention on a guest. That would be something that would be done relative to a CRM or a customer information system where we're really looking at the information in aggregate to understand the areas that matter the most, but also within that area, what are some of the dominant concepts and themes that we're seeing, so those can be actioned on. This information in our service is riding a layer above, trying to understand down to the actual literal identified guest.
Okay, well, I knew when I said penultimate that more questions would come in, so we do have more than one left here, and we have, I guess, 7 minutes on the clock. So let's do them all. For LQA, how much manual effort is needed to create the monthly report, or does the system update templates automatically?
Yeah, great question. So as you might consider, the evolution of this was first taking the output and understanding what is the rules logic that we need to then automate to actually build the report itself. And so we've built that, and we have the rules logic. And so for us to understand and interpret what are the areas that should be celebrated, what are the areas that are trending, what are the priority areas, we're able to surface that information and do that in a streamlined turnkey way. So I think we still obviously probably have work to be done as we continue to commercialize and scale the solution, but that's where we sit today.
Okay, great. Okay, we're almost done here. Well, this is a data cleansing question. Do you eliminate duplicate reviews? Data prep is definitely on everybody's minds.
So for eliminating duplicate reviews, that's something that sometimes clients can do, but that's definitely something that we deal with at our end as well, depending on how the setup is. I think it really depends from, I don't know the LQA perspective. I don't know whether or not you have some kind of process around putting things together, or even if you could get duplicate reviews from your system. But certainly they can be eliminated.
Yeah, and so to answer this, we've done the deduping on the front end as it might relate to surveys or, for instance, duplicate entries on the reviews. Now, obviously, what we can't do is if someone's actually providing a review that's coming across multiple social review sites. They're doing this on Google. They're doing it also on Booking.com. So, I think we're taking a common sense approach to ensuring that we've got quality data that's coming in, but there's also an exercise where we don't want to over-filter those. But that's the approach we take as a part of the pre-processing.
Certainly from a technical perspective, if two of the same reviews come in, yeah, we'll filter that. But again, the question is, how do we deal with somebody who gets really angry at a hotel, and this is one of those verticals where that happens, and goes to every review site and types something very, very similar that's not exactly the same. And that's definitely on how does LQA want to deal with that.
All right, well, Catherine, you're going to get the last word, and I think I'll just read this question the way it was typed. Is this expensive?
So, I don't know. So one of the things about expensive is, I think really for us, a big differentiator is that a lot of these systems require you to do consultant work. And one of the big differentiators on price for us is that we don't, right? If you can see it doing the automated creation of the vocabularies of all that kind of stuff, of really understanding those words, that's something that's done by a computer automatically as opposed to a bevy of consultants. So yes, that's definitely cheaper.
Okay.
In general, we price on annual contracts, and it definitely varies by how much data you're putting into the system. So it's all about data volumes.
Got it. All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you, Catherine and Heath, and thank you to all for attending today's webinar. Please remember to stay connected and complete the brief survey at the conclusion of the webinar. We look forward to supporting you in current and future projects. Thank you again, and have a great day.